right, recording. All right, enlarge this. Yep. All right, so the ancient Greeks. So later than the Egyptians, around 800 BCE to 146 BCE, they were supplanted by the Romans. All right, so what is... I guess I'll just have to use the arrow. Okay, so this is a map of the Aegean. The Aegean Sea right there, you can see that the city-state of Athens, Greece was not a unified country. It was a region with, I guess, what would have been cities. And each city had its own identity, and they were not necessarily peaceful with each other. There were a lot of wars between Greek cities, such as Athens and Sparta, Corinth, Thebes. A lot of them. There were a whole bunch of them. They also they also colonized the region. If there were too many people in a Greek city, they would send them out. No. There we go. They would send groups of people to go colonize someplace else. You can see this. Greek settlements is this sort of... Second. Yep. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. Sorry, it's a very sensitive mouse here. Okay, so Greeks colonized all around the Mediterranean. That's the point. You can see they're way over here in what is present-day Spain, up in areas that are now parts of Ukraine and Russia. And it's probably a good way of controlling, keeping a population from using up its resources, is to just tell some people, tell the population, some people have to leave. So Greek architecture, temple architecture is some of the architecture that we have, most obviously Greek temple, most Greek design and architecture. There are three main, I guess, orders. The Greeks developed systems of architecture that all would go together. The Doric is, you can see the head of the column has this kind of just like really flat bell shape. It's a little bit like an abbreviation of an Egyptian column. The Greeks were influenced by the Egyptians, especially their earlier culture, very strongly. And then at some point in the 5th century BCE, they started to split away. Or I guess they made a clear distinction between themselves and the Egyptians. Okay, the interior, very simple inside a Greek temple. It's for religious purposes, not it's not for living in, really. So you can see there's this colonnade around, and really you're not going to have to worry about stylobate or stereobate. That's just, you can just refer to that as a That's just the surface thing sits on. Okay, this is an artist's rendition of what a Greek temple might look like, or might have looked like. The temple of Aphaea on the island of Aegina. Pediment. So this pediment, the low triangular part of a temple above the entablature. The entablature is this part that the columns are sitting on. That flat triangular pediment is a feature of Greek architecture, which will often tell you, if you're looking at later revival styles, that's a dead giveaway that it's either Greek or Roman. The Romans picked up a lot of stuff from the Greeks. This is Doric. The Doric order, you can see from that flat, that's a pretty kind of little, not much going on in the capital. The columns, you see that those ridges, those are fluted columns. Fluting is when you have this it's concave. Concave is when something pushes away from you. There are these curving concave channels. They really do not a lot to pick up light. They really are pretty wonderful if you seeing that in real life. There aren't these temples, of course, a lot of them are still standing. Some of them are still standing in pieces. Nothing really looks quite like this. Somebody did build this in Tennessee, a smaller version of the Parthenon. So the Parthenon is this enormous temple dedicated to the goddess Athena. It's in the city of Athens. It was built around the middle of the 5th century BCE. Doric order, and it's not in very good shape. Partly that's thanks to it not being it wasn't well cared for by the Turks when they ruled this region. They didn't particularly care about the Greeks. They were they're a subject people. Also, a lot of the sculpture is missing from this temple. It is in London. An English guy named Lord Elgin, this is about 250 years ago, he received permission to take sculpture from the Acropolis, which is this high point in Athens where the temples are. And so they raided these temples and just took anything that they thought might be valuable, easy to take off of there. Some sculpture you can see is still up there, but not much. Not much. There are a few new sections you'll see in some of these temples where they've repaired them, partly to keep them from falling down. All right, so one of the clever things that the Greeks did, optical refinement of a Greek temple. This term, entasis, intentional bulging or curving of a column shaft in the middle in order to override the illusion of concavity that results from a straight shaft seen foreshortened. So as a column, if you're looking up at a column from the ground and it's very tall, there will be this appearance of it kind of bending in on the sides. So the Greeks will put in this slight bulge outward in the middle to make it look straight when they looked at it. Kind of clever. This is a reconstruction of a sculpture of the goddess Athena by the sculptor Phidias. We're starting to get names of people who actually made some of this stuff. This would have been inside the temple. Gold. Facial features. The Greeks painted their sculptures. The English, when they first discovered Greek sculpture, they thought it was white marble. They thought, oh, the Greeks, everything was pure and white like us. Some people were horrified to learn that the Greeks painted things like they put jewels in eyes, they painted things realistically, or even just kind of garishly. Um, Now, the Doric order, you can see here on the left in the lower illustration, is one of the three primary Greek orders. There's three Greek orders. There aren't any. There are only three amongst the Greeks: Doric, Ionic, Corinthian. The Romans introduced Tuscan, and composite is this kind of like extra decorative Corinthian that they came up with. But the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian are the three Greek orders, and mostly they're identified by the capital of the column. You don't necessarily have to know all the different. You're definitely not going to need to know all the different details of the cornice of the building. It's nice to know this stuff, but I'm not going to necessarily. I don't think I'm going to test you on all of this stuff because this is like more detail than you would actually use in practice. I want you to be able to see the major elements of the Greek, of what is Greek compared with what is Egyptian compared with what is Roman. That's what's most important. This is a very general survey course, but this information is still good and interesting. So I want you to be able to see the difference between these different styles. Now, a capital is the broader section at the top or head of a column, usually embellished with stylized decorative motifs. And as I said, it is the best way to know the difference between Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian is to look at the capital. That's it. Okay, the Erechtheion in Athens. This is in the same like hilltop as the Parthenon. This is a little more stranger building. You can see where it is seriously renovated to keep that wall. Like some of these things, like walls were falling down, they pieced them together and reinforced them with extra pieces of like new stone because they wanted to see the thing built. There are people who in Greece who are proponents of rebuilding the Parthenon as it was when it was originally built. And some people who are purists say, no, just leave it as it is. And other people say, no, it looks like shit. Make a better one. Pardon my language. But it looks, compared to what it used to look like, it looks terrible. At one point, someone who had occupied that, the Greek peninsula and the city of Athens, I think it was the Turks, maybe the French or the English. Somebody was messing around there and shouldn't have been there. They used the Parthenon, this tremendous temple, as a place to store ammunition, and it blew up. That's what happened to the roof. There was a huge explosion. Some of this had to be put back together. The fact that it's still there is remarkable. All right, so here's a photograph. I've been to Greece. I took this photo of the Erechtheion. So it's in the Ionic order. The Ionic columns tend to be thinner. They've got that really obvious scroll. It's called the volute. And I love these recreations of what people go into the trouble to make a painting of what it might have looked like. Because especially when you go there and you look at this and you think, God, I really wish I could have seen that. You really do get the sense of like there was this once thriving civilization long gone. Here's a close-up of the capital. This is, some of this stuff is original. Some stuff they take down. These figurative columns, the caryatids, those are not original. The originals are in the museum. Thank you. The originals are in the museum, and they made copies in either like cast or just like somebody, I think they're cast so that they look worn the way they originally were when they took them off. And so those, there's kind of a unique, where are they? No, are they there? No, I think I took off the feature. So this capital of this Ionic column, which I believe is original. Some of them have been removed and, they're in the museum and they put copies in their place. But the scroll volume, Egg ornament is the stuff all along, like up at the very top of the column above the scroll. Also below it, there's this palm leaf motif down on the, just like, like this collar around the top of the column. That is Endymion. Bead and reel. They put a bunch of different ornamental styles in this column. It's really beautiful. The Ionic is really beautiful. Very, very beautiful.
I have a question.
Yes.
What kind of tools do they use to make those shapes?
Chisels, like they had iron, and so they would have used metal, like most likely they would have used iron, like metal tools, or sometimes like they had bronze, but they did have metal like smelting capabilities.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a similar question. How long do they know, like, would it take them to make one column or one bit of this?
Well, I'd have to look up that information. Considering that this was like a building like this was the latest technology. I mean, like this was like what buildings look like, and so I imagine that the people who carved this could do it pretty quickly once they got down to it. But there's a quarry, a marble quarry outside of Athens that still produces marble today. That is the Pentelic marble, which is a type of marble that they had to go get it, cut big pieces of marble off, from the larger piece coming out of the ground, and transport it to Athens. There were areas that are known to have been workshops where these pieces were made. You can see the columns are made in sections. So those drums, inside the drum, there's like a cross of bronze. It's like a pin that goes in. So they cut a cavity inside the, like where the column comes together. In the center of each of the drum, top and bottom, there's a cavity that's the shape of a cross, and they have this like, basically it's like a fastener that's inside the middle of the column. They take time, similar to like big building projects now still take time. They still took time to prepare the site and carve the pieces. And these pieces, the Greeks, the Egyptians and the Greeks, the Romans, they all understood mathematics. Greek orders are, they're designed to be harmonious. So the proportions of the columns, width versus height, fit a mathematical formula. The spacing between the columns, the shape created by the height, like the space between the columns, there's a sort of rectangular shape as you see. All of the geometry in there is intentional. So it took time to design them. It took time to build all the pieces. Took time to put it together and erect it. So I'll see if I can find out that information. I would also encourage all of you, if to do the same. I wish I could tell you right off the top of my head. All right. So here again, detail of the ionic order, the scroll volume, Eigendart, bead and reel. Hey, stop it. Sorry, this should just use my corded mouse. So so here you see there's leaf and dart at the top of this, which is a sort of like leaf shape with the dart.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
So going back to how long it took them to carve a column, one of the students asked. I actually Googled it, and it doesn't talk about column in particular, but it says that amazingly, the ancient Athenians built Parthenon in just 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
Which kind of, I would actually, if I had to make a guess, I would do at least like 50 years or so.
Yeah.
Just because, obviously those are people without any kind of education, formal engineering or anything like that. So I would guess it took longer, but amazing that it did only 9 years. It's not a long time for something this big without any kind of equipment, really.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they did have some equipment, like they had ropes. They've had pretty elementary systems for raising, for like raising a block of stone. But it wasn't what we have now. It wasn't like a big mechanical crane. And there was a leader when the Parthenon was built. There was a leader, Pericles, who was it was kind of his project. The Parthenon was his project. And he really pushed for this to get done quickly. Similar to the way President Kennedy in the 1960s issued this proclamation, really sort of like a challenge that in the early 60s he said by the end of the decade we will be on the moon. And when he said that, nobody knew how in the world anybody was going to get there. The ability to get there didn't quite exist when he said that. But he really created this environment where a lot of people felt like we have to get this done. And I think that was with some of these building projects. It was very much like that, where it's, the civic pride, the temples were a point of pride and competition with other cities. So if Corinth built a large temple, Athens had to build a bigger one. And then, Thebes or Sparta might see like, well, all right, game on, let's build a big temple. And so it was showing off. So thank you for looking that up, Elena. I appreciate that. Any of you, feel free. If someone asks a question and I can't answer it right away, I'm doing the presentation. Look it up and share it with us. That's good. Okay. So some of this detail, egg and dart, leaf and dart, bead and reel. These are details that you're going to see, like you still see them now. People still use bead and reel. They still use egg and dart ornament. You can go buy stock molding that has egg and dart motif on it. So it's stuck around. So the Ionic is much more decorative. There's a lot going on with the Ionic. It's beautiful stuff. So the Anthemion, or Anthemion, however you want to pronounce that, a flower-like ornament, kind of like a Greek palmette or honeysuckle, used in decorative arts. And that is that section of ornament at the bottom. Leaf and dart, there's like what looks like a leaf, sometimes there's like a variation that I've heard called tongue and dart. but leaf and dart and egg and dart. If you look at this, you can see, like with the sort of like oval shape with the curve, in between, there's this like thing. It's a little hard to see. Well, you can see a little bit. There's a dart there. And there they are, the caryatids. Not necessarily like really important, because this is kind of a rare, this didn't occur very often, like where they're using figurative columns, but they're really cool. And sometimes you will see this in revival styles in the 19th century, 20th century. Antefix is a vertical element, frequently on the cornice of a roof or a building. So like this flower shape that's up there on top of this, that's sticking up. That's an antefix, sometimes referred to as a palmette. Some of the terms are a bit interchangeable. Rinceau, this is a French term for this decorative border that goes along, and it's this sort of scrolly, looks like a vine growing. And of course, the downspout has this great cool lion head to let the water come out. And the cornice is the uppermost building above the attached. It's right in the corner of the roof is the cornice. Ornaments, border motif of fret, meander, sometimes called the Greek key. This is like used as it's used in detail. It's still used in detail. The one on the top that that symbol that the Germans in the 1920s and 1930s ruined is an ancient symbol. You see this in almost every ancient culture. All this, the very common kind of ornament, kind of decorative ornament, the geometric ornament that's very, very simple. But a swastika is a very old symbol, and it's, Germany in the 30s used it for a very sinister purpose. And they really just kind of goofed it. It's like, all right, well, now if you use it, you're a Nazi. So don't want to use that. All right, so this is an example of a Greek Corinthian capital. I took this photo. This is in a museum in Greece. It is made of a type of marble called Carian marble from the island of Paros, and it's more translucent than the marble used that's from Athens, the Pentelic marble. I don't know that I'm going to necessarily ask you to identify the difference between those two, but it's interesting. It's interesting to me. I was with a group and we had a tour of this museum. The guide showed us why the Parian marble is special. She held up a flashlight on one side of a section of this column, and you could see the light coming through it. The composition of this marble allows more light to pass through it. So it reflects it and light passes through. So more than the other type of marble, it seems to glow. And in the Mediterranean sun, it's would create a pretty cool effect. Whoops. Now, the leaf ornament is acanthus. That is a type of plant that grows in the Mediterranean, and acanthus leaf is another ornamental, I guess it's another type of ornament that you will still see. People still use acanthus leaf because it refers back to the Greeks. It's a mark of quality. If you use acanthus leaf in a design, it says that it tells the people looking at it that you know something. There's also this vine, this scroll that comes off of it, and there's a flower motif. A lot of the flower is broken off and worn away. But you can tell, you can see the difference between. These are stylized, but sort of get the idea. The Tuscan Doric. Tuscan is it's like an Italian, well, it's from like Tuscany, which is northwestern Italian peninsula. Yeah, so the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian are Greek. Tuscan and Composite are Roman additions to those quarters. All right, now, Now, domestic architecture. Greek domestic architecture looked a little something like this, and there is evidence of it. Archaeologists can tell from the materials used. They give some idea of what it looked like. Sometimes you have depictions in artwork of what things look like, so they can put this together. Now, interestingly, you can see there's this tile roof and courtyard. When I was in Greece, I took this picture in 2004, and it looks an awful lot like that old stuff. It seems that the domestic architecture in this region, it has a certain look, and it has for thousands of years. Stone mosaic. In some places, especially in the islands of Greece, this stone is used to pave sidewalks and streets. Here's a reconstruction of a Greek domestic interior, floor decorated in black and white pebble mosaic. And the couches. So Greeks used couches for reclining, for eating. It was kind of luxurious to just lounge and eat. You can see these couches, they don't have backs, but they use pillows to prop themselves up. Looks kind of comfy. The tables are low enough, are just at the right height that when they're not being used, they're slid underneath the couches. This is from a gravestone. The reason we're looking at this is because of the chair. The chair is called a klizmos, and it is a unique design that the Greeks came up with. It does not resemble anything that the Egyptians made. So it is a demonstration of Greek ingenuity. Here are some illustrations. Oops, moved upward. Greek furniture from vase paintings. The Greek pottery was very popular throughout the Mediterranean. They used a lot of the Greek city-states were really good with ceramics, and they built containers for water, wine, oil. A lot of Greek regions of Greece grew olives, sold olives, made olive oil, and sold olive oil. And so there was a commercial element to Greek activity where they would sell, Greek pottery is found in tombs in different cultures in the region. It's found all over, the region. And, they decorated the pottery with imagery, and some of it was more like, this is what our furniture, this was just an example of an illustration of a myth, but they would use their contemporary furniture in illustration of the myth. Here's a reconstruction of what a klizmos might have looked like. So a Greek company that makes reproductions of a Greek klizmos, of ancient Greek furniture, with this tapered saber leg. I like the leather, this woven leather seat. This is a Greek couch. In Greek would be referred to as a klina. You see, klein, recline. We get a lot of our language from the Greeks. So basically,
so Duffy,
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Is this furniture across all classes of Greece? Or is this like upper class, or was this kind of like what everybody to some extent used?
That I don't know for sure. A lot of the stuff that we have is the nicer stuff. The less money, like the more, I guess, a lot of the stuff that we have is the stuff that was used by the upper classes because it was made better.
Okay.
Stuff was cheap, like just like a cheap stool was just, it was, it's for right now. It might not have lasted. I think that some of the, even in those days, better materials, better construction cost more.
Okay.
Now, was there another question?
I also have a question. So the furniture that we see here on these images, these are all reconstructions. We actually don't, there's nothing that's sitting somewhere in a museum that's from that era
That's correct.
of Greek culture. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, we're lucky with the Egyptians that the way it was preserved, but with the Greeks there's no such luck. If there is, there might be some fragments, but nothing like what we have of the Egyptians. Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first time I saw one of these, I had this like moment of like, oh my God, a Greek chair, and like, yeah, it's not real. All right, and they're beautiful. And this is like the best understanding. Like this is someone's like, you look at it and you think, okay, this is probably what it was made like. I love, this is beautiful. And I'm sure there's some contemporary embellishment on it. But look at that mosaic on the floor. That is gorgeous, isn't it? Mosaic is when you take those small little pieces of tile, and these are all approximately uniform in size, and just, you adhere that to the surface like a floor in a design. Kouros. So some Greek sculpture. This is a colossal Kouros of the island of Samos. I took this picture. I was at that museum. This is earlier than the classical period. There's the archaic period of the Greeks, which is much more like the Egyptians. For the first part of the Greek civilization, they were very much dependent upon the Egyptians for how to do things. So this is a sculpture of Egyptian royal couple. You see the left leg forward on both of them, and also this like bit of stone left in there to prop them up and keep them from falling over. The Greeks were better at making things stand up. The Greeks had a much better understanding of balance. So here's the Egyptian. Here's this like colossal Kouros, which is, it's one of the things that's a shame about some of these archaeological sites. There was a temple on this island that was devoted to the goddess Hera, wife of Zeus, queen of the gods. And all along this path toward the temple, there were dozens of these gigantic sculptures lining the path. There aren't very many left. So this is Egyptian, and so this is early like Greek. Kourai is the dang it. Sorry about my stupid mouse here. I just brush my finger over the thing, it just kind of flips out. So Kourai is plural of Kouros, which really means like young man in Greek. So from the archaic periods, so there's archaic period, there's classical period. The archaic period is right before the classical period, where they're slowly developing their own individual style and way of doing things. So you can see the increasing sophistication just in a few decades, they had this like they hit, hit a high gear in the sixth century BCE, and then by the 5th century they were doing the Parthenon. And then here, this is a sculpture known as a Riace warrior. And the reason it has an Italian name is that it was found off the coast of Italy near the city of Riace in 1972. There was a shipwreck back in the ancient world. This sculpture was being transported someplace, and the ship sank to the bottom. And so this is a cast bronze sculpture. You can see the sophistication of human anatomy. Pretty good. Pretty good. The Greeks achieved a level of realism that set the standard for realistic depiction, and they, other than cleaning up a few details here and there, they kind of got there. And how much more realistic can you make a human figure look? So, now, I mean, it's a very good understanding of human physiology, and also just that they would make them balance quite well. You will see like later when we look at like the Romans were not as good as the Greeks at some of this stuff. They were great at engineering like buildings, but the sculpture, they were like kind of iffy. You'll see a Roman knockoff of a Greek sculpture, and instead of just freestanding, the Roman version will have a post that the thing is like, so like, basically it's a support to keep the sculpture from falling down. All right. A black figure amphora. Amphora is a type of ceramic vessel. You don't necessarily need to know all of them, but this is from the late Archaic period, and you see these athletes competing in the race. The Olympics started with the Greeks, and you can see some of this ornament of the honeysuckle band, this sort of like little like leafy guy. The black figure is like there's black figure and red figure pottery. Calyx crater. A crater is this, it's and again, it's a different type of vessel. And there is the illustration of a myth, but look at this ornament is really quite beautiful on this. So that, I believe, is it for this one. Yes. Let's stop sharing. Okay. That's that. That's the Greeks. I'm going to write up notes for this, my notebook that's sitting right in front of me here. Let me see if there's anything I left out. I don't know that I did. Yeah, there's not. The notes here are not nearly as lengthy as the Egyptians. But I'll write up another set of notes for the Greeks and for the Romans, because after next week's class, sometime either before or soon after next week's class, I will open up the first quiz for you to take, and you will have 1 week to complete it. And we'll talk more about what that is next week. I hope.
Hello, Duffy.
Hi.
I thought you might want to see some people.
That's very nice of you. Thank you. But
You're welcome.
I'm not just speaking to a wall of initials. No. There is something I want to remember to talk about. It's in my notes to do so. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to go to actually, it wasn't this, but I think I might have to get this book, Birds in Ancient Egypt. Kind of thing that I discover when I'm looking up information for my presentations. In Blackboard, assignment, vocabulary cards. So let's open up this vocabulary card assignment. This is going to be hopefully fun. Whoop, come on. It's not that, that's that. Good. All right. So here's what you're going to do. You have until almost the end of the semester to complete this assignment. You will go through vocabulary lists or any item from a book or slide from any time period covered in the class. Choose 25 things that interest you, 25 items that interest you, and make graphical flashcards of each. Follow the guidelines below. Make a clear and detailed drawing on one side. Begin with pencil, ink with pen. On the reverse, write the name of the object or technique. You might choose rinso as one of them and draw this beautiful rinso to the best of your ability, and then write what it is and give a definition or some description of it. You need to make 25 of them. The drawings don't have to be super artistic. They have to be clear and understandable. I need to be able to look at it and see, yes, that is an Ionic capital. If it doesn't look like an Ionic capital, especially considering an Ionic capital is very distinctive, then I'd tell you, you would not get the 1 point credit for that card. Correctly completed cards will earn 1 point. If they need revision, I will return them to you. I'm going to have you turn in 12 at the midterm. If they need revision, I'll return them to you for improvements, and you may resubmit. Actually, you're going to have to submit them online. I'll create a section in Blackboard for that. This is an opportunity to enhance your grade and become better acquainted with objects, styles, and techniques covered in the course. 12 will be due at midterm, and then the other 13 will be due at the end of the semester. So this one is a Biedermeier chair. Biedermeier furniture is from the 19th century, southern German. So this is a drawing of one style, one Biedermeier chair. There are a lot of different variations on Biedermeier style. And then a definition. Simple. So some people have drawing experience, and they have loads of fun making these detailed cards, and they'll get 25 points for it. And then someone else whose drawing skill is maybe not as good, that person will make clear and simpler cards and also get 25 points. There's no penalty. The only penalty is if I can't tell what it is. So if it's too simple, or I look at it and like, yeah, you need to make this clearer, then I'll tell you. But I really only have the opportunity to do that if you turn it into me with time for you to correct it. So I want you to finish 12 for the midterm, and so you might even just make one, share it with me, and ask me, how's this? And I'll tell you. Good. I can tell you, you would receive full credit for this card. 1 whole point. So
this is not an extra credit. This is an actual project that we have to do.
This is
and we only receive 1 point for it, or 1 point per card.
Per card.
per card. Okay.
5 points total.
Okay.
It's, for anyone who might feel a little nervous about it, it's intentional that it is not a huge part of your grade. However, it's really good practice. If you draw something, you have to see it. And it really helps you to understand what something actually looks like or what makes up the design if you draw it. So it's about learning, it's about understanding. And a couple of you were at this online presentation this morning from this designer in Philadelphia, and she did mention drawing, being able to make a sketch for a client. It's a very valuable skill. With all the digital media, it gets shoved aside as if it's not used anymore, but people still use it. And your clients assume you know how to draw. A lot of them will, and they love it. They love it. They love it. They love it. If you can make even just a decent sketch of something that you're talking about, so you can give them a visual, it really makes you look like you know what you're doing, and it really inspires confidence. So next semester is perspective and rendering for those of you who haven't taken it. That's I'm a proponent of drawing. It is an extremely valuable skill. It can be challenging, it can be difficult, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. No way. It's communication. It is a great tool for communication. So this is an assignment. You can decide like I ain't doing it, or like I'm going to do 5. Who cares? Fine. I can't make you do this, but you should do it. It's really good for you. Start simple. Find something simple and do it. If you need my assistance, I can do a demonstration. How about this? Next week, I'll do a demonstration of drawing one of these things. Okay? First you do it. First you try it. Then I'll step up and I'll do a demo for you. Cool. All right. Well, that I think is going to be that. I'm going to stop recording.